Mantic Universe Podcast. So many universes, so little time.
Hello, you are listening to the Mantic Universe Podcast. I'm Chris, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend Gerry.
Hello, how are you?
How are you, kind sir?
I'm absolutely fantastic. Possibly even better than that.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. Easter's over, home from salute. Liverpool's won the Premier League. Everything's fantastic. It's all good. Everything's coming up in Millhouse. Even Rory McIlroy even managed to get the Grand Slam in the golf without choking for once in his life. So little Nairn is just a pot of joy.
Oh, that's good to hear, buddy. Oh, fantastic. Yes, well, funny you mention it. I was actually in Ireland just probably a month ago, three short weeks ago, I guess. Yes, I'm sure we'll talk about that, dear listener. But I suppose there are I'm going to guess there are a lot of Liverpool fans in Ireland, I would imagine.
Well, Liverpool, I think, counts as Ireland's second capital. So, in that respect,
oh,
yes.
This makes sense. They used to say that about Wales as well. Yes. There we go. That makes sense.
There
Perfect.
are a lot of us lurking.
Oh, there always are, aren't there? Cool. Mark, how are you, kind sir?
Oh, not too bad, Chris. Just kind of, looking forward to re-recording our previous engagement earlier this evening.
Let's throw it into Mantic News.
And now it's time for the Mantic News.
So, Mark, champions, I'm going to say, question mark?
Loving champions, absolutely. So, actually, come join us over on Facebook on the Kings of War Champions Fanatics page. We've got more and more people joining us over there. I did not order direct from Mantic. Bad for me. I ordered from, the regular retail chain, and I have not gotten my stuff yet. So I am still waiting. How about you guys?
I'm going to be honest, I haven't actually ordered any champions yet. I'm going to, definitely. But, I've had an expensive couple of months. That doesn't help. And I've got an enormous pile of shame. So, I'm sure I'm going to get the starter box, and I'm sure I'm going to get the Trident Realm box. But I haven't jumped on it. Although I played, just this afternoon, actually, I played a game of Kings of War Ambush with my son, which was very nice. He's 5 years old. We had a lovely old time. So he was Northern Lights and I was the Trident Realm. And that was great. So, I think I could really see us getting a lot of fun out of Champions together, to be honest, But not yet. Gerry, have you ordered anything for Champions yet?
I have the core set coming my way. And then once it arrives, I'll see what I'll do with regards picking up some of the little Champions command forces. I'm particularly looking forward to get my hands on the Trident Realm that they tease the hero for it, and it is the cutest thing in the world ever.
Looks so cool, doesn't it? Yes.
Yeah. And then they went, no, but you just can't have it yet. It's going to be months away. Suck it up.
Oh, yeah. And I think September is what I saw, so it's a ways off.
Yeah. If that had come up, I would have just ordered that because I love Trident Realm, and that I agree with you, Gerry. I think that's the standout. To me, that's the standout model. But they look great. They look a little bit more cartoonish, I'd say. I mean, they look a bit more kind of kid friendly, but I think in a really good way. I think they look, and between the different armies, you can see there's a common theme. They look like they belong in the same universe together, if that makes sense. They don't just look like fantasy things thrown together, as sometimes these things look. So yeah, I'm excited. So Mark, have you actually played a game of Champions yet? I believe you have, haven't you?
I have not yet. I finally collected all of the cards because I don't have them. So I've finally seen enough screenshots to put everything together to go ahead and do a test game. So, but unfortunately, I'm moving house. So, I haven't been able to do that right now. So, but, it should be interesting. But I'm looking forward to it coming. We got some spectacular stuff coming for you guys as soon as that happens. But I wanted to ask Gerry real quick, did Mantic stop over at On Tabletop to do the preview screening and all this? I haven't seen that yet on the interwebs. I've been waiting for it to drop. So,
shockingly enough, no. This is terrible, and I blame everybody.
I blame Andy. So there you go.
So when I was at Salute, I seen Tobias very quickly on setup day, but never got back near them. But obviously that was the week or so after they'd all got back from Adepticon. So a lot of the big ones from Mantic weren't around, although I did hear Matt was in doing a seminar at Salute. But yeah, haven't had a chance to yet. I've been speaking with Dan on the side about doing some stuff on the channel and possibly getting them over at some juncture to do something for OTT. But nothing's set in stone yet on that front, unfortunately. But I will get them eventually.
That's actually some of my favorite release material from Mantic is when they stop by your studios and, drop the good information there. So, but hopefully you'll get them over. That'll be great. I don't know what the next big show is. I know we're going to be at the Origins Game Fair. Mantic is going to have a booth again this year. I think that we're going to be able to do demos and stuff like that in the booth this year, which should be exciting. We have the Ohio War Kings area renamed the Mantic area now, so we've got a lot of that going on. And I can happily report all the paint and takes I'm running for Halo are all sold out. So a lot of demand out there for Halo. I think there was one ticket left for the Learn to Plays. So, and they are setting up Champions demos at Origins. So I think that might be the next big show where it's going to be available.
Whenabouts is Origin?
Origins is in Columbus, Ohio. It's on June 18th through the 22nd this year.
Okay.
Origins is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. We're very, very excited.
Well, there's a big one in the UK 2 weeks before that. So the UK Games Expo, which is the biggest tabletop exhibition and trading thing, it would be the equivalent of Gen Con or Adepticon, but in the UK. It's the first weekend in June, and I know Mantic's at that. So I dare say we'll see Ronnie and the like there, because for people who are unaware, we pack up the studio in Coleraine and rebuild it in a little, I call it the goldfish tank. It's like a glass-sided porta cabin thing that they put in the middle of one of the halls, and we run our live stream for the entire weekend from there, and then bring people like Luke Gygax and Sir Ian Livingston and people like that round to chat with them on the sofa, kind of like a daily talk show type of thing. So if Ronnie is there, he wasn't last year because it clashed with something else, but hopefully if he's there, we'll get him on and sort of, I was going to say hassle him for knowledge, but
there you go. Well, that sounds fantastic. I'm going to look forward to that.
Is now the time to ask, is On Tabletop hiring? That sounds amazing. Incredible stuff. Awesome. Super. Oh, and dear listener, sorry, I'll just throw this in here clumsily because I forgot to say at the top of the show. I just wanted to say a big thank you to Fred, our editor, who's we've sort of he's been doing so much work for us behind the scenes, so we sort of made him lead editor, I think is what we agreed on. So thanks ever so much for Fred, and I just want to say big thanks to Tam, who's also joined as our editor. And please, dear listener, he's a professional sound engineer, so check out Red Glen Productions on Facebook. And I hope that's right, because I've accidentally deleted my notes. So I'm 99% sure that's the correct name. So thank you ever so much, Fred, and thank you ever so much, Tam. Sorry, guys, I'll stop interrupting now.
Well, that's all right. I'll throw in my thank you as well. So MUP would not be the same without you guys. Thank you.
That's right. And hey, now we're talking about sort of Mantic news. I mean, obviously, there's been so much news recently. What's sort of semi-related? So on the Vault last month, we had some sort of Asterians. Oh, I forgot what they're called now. The Space Lizard stuff. So I've asked my friend Manuel to print me some of the Space Lizard bike things and also the 2 dinosaur things. Who doesn't need robot dinosaurs in their lives? So hopefully in a couple of weeks I'll just have something in the post and it'll be some resin. Yes, and I'm going to do a firefight army just with the Space Lizards, which is going to be super, super cool. So I've got a load of the hard plastic stuff, got some bikes, got 2 dinosaurs. What could be better?
Well, giant undead dragon could be better.
Oh, that did look cool. Yes, so that's I think, is that the 2-year thank you?
Yeah. So for people who haven't seen it, if you're a subscriber after 24 of the solid months, they've dropped an impressive bit of kit. The previous, was it last year, was the Abyssal Dwarf Hellfiend. Was that the 1 year anniversary?
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
So it was a big chunky piece of resin, but it already existed. This is a majestic looking worm, winged, with a rider on its back, creeping down a massive, I don't know if they're crystal or shards of stone or what, but it's sort of lithely sneaking forward like a cat prowling after something, and it's a totally new sculpt. It's absolutely gorgeous, and hopefully I'll be able to find somebody to make that alive for me, because I need one in my life. Possibly two.
I'm not even doing an undead army. Well, I have an undead army, but I never play it because it's not Mantic models. But yes, I would like to have that just to have it as a thing. You know, it's just such a cool... Yeah, and it bodes well for the future, doesn't it? It's amazing they can just sort of casually put something like that into the vault and, you know, here you go, guys, look at this stunning, massive zombie dragon. There you go. Yeah, very nice. Cool. Mark?
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough to be hitting my 24 months, so I'm looking forward to getting mine. So, but it's going to be as impressive and massive as the giant is on your tabletop. So it's going to be interesting. You know, I've got to get that thing printed as well. So, you know, we'll have to see how tall it is. It might come in chunks, but hopefully we can do it all in one big majestic piece. We'll see. I haven't seen the STL yet drop. So, but looking forward to it.
Yeah, very nice. I'm not sure how much we want to do on the Mantic news this month. I know there's loads of stuff that's been mentioned. I mean, some of it they've talked about on the MUP Halo show, etc. But there's the Assassin's Creed board game, Gerry. We've kind of speculated or wondered loudly on the pod previously. Do we think it's going to be a war game? It looks like it's going to be a board game. I've got to be honest, I didn't read past the headlines, but it looks like it's going to be a board game.
So, board game, 2 to 4 players. So it's a versus game. And I think when we talked about this previously, I'd mentioned the fact that Triton Noir in Canada had the license to do an Assassin's Creed board game as well, but it is a solo/cooperative game. So it's you and your friends against the mechanics of the game, against the target, if you will. It's all AI moving. This, on the other hand, seems to be adversarial. They haven't really said anything else beyond some of the heroes, I suppose they are, that are going to be in it. So it covers at least 4 of the games. So you're going to have the Ragnarok and the initial Italy-based Assassin's Creed stuff. But I expect you may see some of the other bits and pieces coming through, like the one they did for Greece/Atlantis, stuff like that. And then the game's going to be around about 90 minutes long. So I'm interested to see where they go with it and exactly how it sets up. Obviously, this is something that's going to be leaning into the fact that they have a board game division now led by Alessio Cavatore. And I think, if I'm not very much mistaken, Jack Caesar is involved. He worked for Riverhorse, or it was an independent. He was brought in by Riverhorse a few times. So he's done stuff people will have seen before, but he's also worked on things like, I think he's worked on Worms, in fact, along with some other games like Labyrinth and Dark Crystal. And other, yeah. So he's done a lot of work with those alongside RPG style of things. So he's a good grasp of board game mechanics. I'm not sure who exactly within Mantic's board game division is going to be working on it, but I'm looking forward to seeing what they do and how they set themselves apart from the Triton Noir one. Because, it could be a lot of fun. I've only ever played the first Assassin's Creed, so I'm not heavily invested in the background and all the rest. But the fact they are setting it up to be something that's adversarial, it should be interesting. Maybe they'll lean into the sort of Leagues of Infamy type of thing, where you're all attempting to take out the same target, and it's up to only one assassin can claim the kill and claim the prize, so to speak. Maybe they'll go that way.
That would be cool. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, because it would be strange if all these assassins were trying to assassinate each other, right?
Yeah. Whereas if they're all attempting to get other ones caught or slow them down by throwing guards in their direction while they try and take out the target. That seems perfectly assassinable for me.
That sounds like fun as well, to be fair, doesn't it? Because you can not only assassinate someone, but screw over your friends. I mean, what could be better?
Not many things in life are better than that.
There you go. Have either of you played the Assassin's Creed video game? I have watched the kids play it, but I have not played it. So,
like I say, I played the first one. And the reason I stopped at the first one was I really had this idea that Assassin's Creed would be about this Renaissance assassin creeping around Venice and Italy, stabbing people up. And then you start playing it and you're Joe Bloggs from New York and it's modern day. And then they put you on a table and inject you with magic woo-woo juice and you see through your genetic memory of what your ancestor did. So every now and again you would, if you died or whatever, or between missions, you'd jump back to the future, to present day. And I just didn't want, I don't care about this guy. I don't care about this fella in New York. I want to play the Italian assassin. Thank you very much.
I had exactly the same thing where I tried playing one of the games and then it kicked off with all this sci-fi mumbo-jumbo nonsense. And I thought this was games about assassins in the olden times. And I got confused and frustrated and went and did something else because I have a very short attention span. But it'd be interesting to see, won't it? And it's nice, Mantic is doing more stuff, right? It's always, I always find it interesting with games companies where, for example, Privateer Press, has their one big game, or Corvus Belli has Infinity. And I think it's always hard to come up, or it seems from the outside, it seems like it's always very hard to come up with different regular, reliable revenue streams, right? So I think Mantic having Halo, Mantic having the board game division, which is regularly kind of ticking over, can only be a good thing, right? And hopefully there's less pressure on Kings of War to be the game that keeps selling,
Oh, 100%. I think because I've seen a few people go, oh, Mantic are doing another video game. And I was looking at it going, yes, they are, but I think we're going to have to start dividing the board game side of Mantic from the tabletop miniature stuff, because they can essentially be totally independent. It doesn't really matter if there's some blur at some point with somebody maybe doing artwork or doing background or whatever it is for one of the board games, and then something different for a miniatures game. You really have to look at them and just go, well, Mantic is the umbrella, and yes, they may be releasing all sorts of stuff on the board game division, but if you're not into your board games, you can just quite happily let them do whatever they want to do in the corner. They can just truck off and do Assassin's Creed or Worms or whatever it happens to be, and it'll all be lovely, and they'll bring in extra revenue, and then I can get my my sisterhood in plastic, which is assumes why they're doing it.
Really interested just listening to the Halo shows, the MUP Halo shows. Dear listener, please listen. But yeah, I mean, I'm someone that likes Halo, but not enough to be in with every release or whatever. And it's interesting to me as a listener to how many of the people on that show that come on as guests and now they're important people in the Halo community. They'd never heard of Mantic before. They just got it because it was Halo, and they now they understand. Mantic are really, really good at writing rules. But it seems to have introduced the name Mantic or the brand to a much wider audience. And Mantic seem to have a load of stuff at the moment that has the potential to do this. I think even Champions, as kind of negative as I've been about it, I think for new people, maybe this isn't a brilliant product for bringing new people in. So, let's hope that's the case.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I'm very excited about what Champions could possibly do. Introduction to rank and flank, and it's got the individual packs so that you can go ahead and kind of like card games, collectible card games or something like that. You can pick up your starter deck, so to speak. You get your starter company and you can jump into the game. So, the more they can simplify that process of crossing over into another genre of games is a great thing for me. So actually it's kind of got me excited to do some demos. So I might, retire from my Outrider retirement and get into the Pathfinders and join you and Clem, Chris, and go do some demos for games. I'm that excited about it. So,
just imagine if you were getting a demo for a game and then you found out it was famous Mark Zielinski giving a demo. My goodness.
nobody cares, Chris.
Be very intense with them. Tell them to care. I'm Mark Zielinski. Shout that at them. I'm sure that'll help.
There you go. Yeah, they'll buy that, Chris.
If you're a dear listener, when you're giving a demo, there's a few key tips. One is wear deodorant. Secondly, brush your teeth. And 3 is be nice and calm and enthusiastic without getting too intense. I think that's what do you think, guys? Is that good advice?
Pretty much good advice for life. But definitely if you plan on running a demo for the members of the public, yes, 100%. Otherwise, I'll have to break out the Febreze.
Totally agree. And also, again, agree with Gerry. It's just good fundamentals for life. So
there we go. You listen to a hobby podcast and, you get advice for life. Perfect, guys. Super. Guys, I'm scrambling because, of course, I have such a low attention span. What else do we have for Mantic news, or do we just want to move on to the next section?
Well, I think the only other thing will probably be talked at length in upcoming shorts for Halo, because the Halo Flashpoint app came out at the end of last week, along with the PDF rules and the tournament bits and pieces as well. So that's all now live and ready for people to go.
And Ronnie, am I right in thinking this is actually a separate thing? Is it its own thing? It's not in the Mantic app?
Yeah, it's on a separate, the Halo Flashpoint website. I think it lives in there.
It's interesting they've done that now.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's because they don't want to confuse people, or if it uses such a different layout to the current app that it wasn't connectable, if you know what I mean, that would have caused issues. It does, however, use the same. If you've already got a login for Mantic Vault or the Companion, it's the same login. It will tell you to use that anyway. So it's there, but it's separate and unto itself. Maybe they're just trying to keep themselves as self-contained as possible for Halo so they don't confuse new people who come in and all of a sudden there's 5 different systems that they have to try and navigate to find Halo on it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's probably due to the license, I'm going to imagine, so that they had to keep that separate, because it's not technically a Mantic property. That Walking Dead's not up there either. It'd be nice to have that for All Out War, or whatever the war game expansion is called for that. But I think that's probably why, because that license can come and go. So
that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point, Mark. Yeah. If they lose the license, they don't have to do massive surgery on. Yeah, okay. There might be interruptions or whatever. Yeah, good point. Yeah, potentially that's it. So, do we want to move on to talking about Pannithor?
Hello, 520. Kacper from Kings of Warsaw Club here. 7-8 of June, 2,300 points, 6 rounds, 40 players, and only one to beat them all. Save the date, and I see you soon on Kings of Warsaw GT.
Have we played any Kings of War lately, guys?
Mine has all been mental, so I haven't had any miniatures hit the table. I haven't played, but I've been painting. So I've been painting towards champions because I have all the plastics. I just don't have the miniatures themselves. So I've working on my Northern Alliance right now. So
nice.
I'm working away. Absolutely. So I've got, I'm working on, I forget what his name is. The guy on the Crow. I've got him coming, the Raven. I'm working on him right now.
Did I understand he's secretly an abyssal dwarf? Did I misunderstand?
That is correct.
Oh, that's cool.
So for me, the big thing is, am I really working on an abyssal dwarf army? So, but no, that's the very last line of the lore. So he's a spy.
I really like that.
Yeah, so we're working on that right now. I've started Trident Realms. I've got the hobby ADD in absolute full rev. I'm just bopping between everything to try to get ready. And because as I said, I've got all the plastics. I've got a bunch of the Basileans done. The one big thing is, though, I don't have troops of things. So because I built mostly regiments for Kings of War, so I've got to build some new troops. But, even though I do have the plastics, but I'm just about done with the Northern Alliance, and then I'm going to jump into starting Basileia, I think, next. I don't have the new cav, but, I probably would just use the old cav until the new stuff comes or something like that. Again, I did not get it direct from Mantic. Bad on me. I went through the local friendly game store chain, the distribution chain, to try to give it a little bit of a push that way, just to show demand. And, the reward for that is you wait. So that's what I'm doing.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and my local store has not gotten their stock yet. And they also did not get the preview on the Goblin and the Night Stalker companies were also supposed to be out for certain game stores. So I'm really shooting to get those too. I'm hoping that we'll get them. They were on their list, but I don't know if they'll get them or not. So, but I sit and wait, and I'm waiting patiently. So I'm just working on stuff, and basically that's it, waiting for it to come.
I think $50 is a great price point for it as well, isn't it? For everything you need to play.
Yeah, I think it's 55 US. So, not bad. A lot of games, Magic the Gathering Commander deck costs about that. And I think that, again, using the collectible card game analogy is, right there from the sweet spot.
Yeah. Yeah, normally with collectible card games, the starter boxes are reasonable. And then, the real cost comes later, right? Fantastic.
Well, the one thing you won't have to worry about with Champions is that you're not going to be chasing foil rares or something like that. So and you have to buy multiple copies of the same company to get something. However, I do understand, and there was a post on Mantic, that there is something in the company boxes. There's like some kind of artifact or something like that. I don't know if Gerry knows, but it's something. It's only for 7 of them. They don't have it for the 2 that are in the starter box. And I heard or saw somewhere that I guess those 2 armies, the Abyssals and the Basileans, are going to come out in their own company boxes sometime down the road. But right now they're just in the starter box. So they may get these artifacts or something. I've not seen a picture. I haven't heard what they are. I've tried fishing on Fanatics, on the Kings of War Champion Fanatics page. Nothing. I brought it up on the Mantic page and I was shut down with the don't talk about it type of thing. That's the secret. It's like, okay, all right, I know. Okay. I guess I'll be patient. It'll come someday, but
I think it's, people are obviously very nervous about 4th edition and what that brings. And I've had some frankly bizarre questions thrown my way about, someone asked, are they going to bring armies back? I said, what do you mean bring armies back? And it was, everyone's talking about them chucking armies out. Well, are they going to bring any of them back? They haven't chucked anything out yet. Why would they be? If they're chucking something out now, why would they be bringing it back? Plans to bring it back. That doesn't make sense. But so we've had some frankly bizarre questions about it. But I'm going to say if your faction has a champions box, I would be absolutely shocked if it's not, if the faction isn't in 4th edition.
Yeah, from what I heard, if you've got Mantic plastics, you're safe. Personally, I think that they might reduce something or combine it so they can bring out some new factions. That could be possible because I'm heavily speculating, and I don't know if Gerry knows, but I'm speculating we'll get 2 new armies hopefully in the starter box for 4th edition. So I think that would help it sell too.
Oh, you think new armies? Interesting. Gerry, what do you think?
It would be interesting. I'll give it that. I honestly am not sure. I know nothing, as Manuel once said. I think a couple of new armies would be terrific, but at the same time, I think they'd probably be better off expanding plastics for something that's close to being finished, if you know what I mean. So if they have...
I do know what you mean. I wish they did it with the Trident Realm when they did the Trident Realm release last year. Yeah.
Yeah, placoderms.
Thank you, Gerry.
I mean, it's one of those things. GW did this years ago. Between 7th and 8th, they started to remove anything that didn't have miniatures for it. And some of those models had, they'd never had miniatures for them, even though they'd been in the army list since 1st or 2nd edition. So they've been sitting for 30, 35 years as a stat line. And I don't know if Mantic is going to go that way, but I think it's more likely than not that they're going to reduce the amount of units in some lists to maybe sort of weed out some of the ones they're never going to make, or something. The amount of time where you see somebody going, oh, this stat line and this stat line for these two units are almost identical. Why would I take this in my army when this exists for 5 points less? And then you get the whole breakdown of, there's no point in this existing. They're double dipping. So we often see this where every time there's a Clash of Kings comes out and they go through it line by line and go, well, they've given this unit 5 points off in snare and +1 nerve to try and make people take it. I think they might just start going, you know what, for 4th edition, why do we just remove some of these redundant things where you've got 2 or 3 units that are practically identical within a list? Maybe bring it down to 2.
Yeah, it was like when Elves had, and I think they still do, bless them, Palace Guard and Forest Guard. Well, they're so similar kind of, I could understand if you wanted to have 2 separate armies. One is basically, let's be honest, your High Elves, and one is your Wood Elves, and you want to have Wood Elf guys and Palace, fancy High Elf guys. But, I mean, just having 2 such similar units, then you've got your Shield Watch, etc. There's a lot of similar units that perform a similar function, all kind of sitting together, and because they're marginally different stats-wise, somebody on the internet's worked out one is a bit better, so you never see one anyway, So there's no real reason for rules-wise to have them in there, if that makes sense. So, yeah, Gerry, to me that makes a lot of sense. If they, yes, and as Mark said, if Mantic make hard plastics, it's very, very unlikely that your army is going to get removed. It's just all these weird and wonderful units where Mantic, if you actually look at the Big Red Book, look at all the different unit profiles. Even if Mantic wanted to, they couldn't. I suppose they could throw a load of stuff in the vault, but realistically, they're not going to be making a lot of those units. So just kind of streamlining it a little bit probably makes sense for 4th edition.
I do have a question for Mark, though.
And I'm right here to answer it, Gerry.
What 2 armies would you like to see in a 4th edition box, then?
Oh, I love that question.
Yeah, well, we went over this on the Pannithor. We were reading Clash of Kings, the last edition, and there are 2 different armies in there. One's like the X or something like that, and I can't remember the name of the other one. I always have Dave to lean on when I'm in the lore episodes on the names. But one of them is kind of like samurai vampires, and the other one, we don't know what it is. But they've been mentioned, and so that's what I think would make a very cool 4th edition starter set, is just hit the ground running with 2 splashy new armies. And, they always say, what I've been hearing on the other podcasts, be bold, make a statement. And I think that's bold, making a statement. And, people would want the new plastics. The other way they could sell a bunch of them if they put plastic placoderms in there. But I digress. But those would probably be the 2 new armies. And if I had a second backup, I would love to see new Mantic elves fighting new Mantic dwarfs. That would be my second favorite. How about you, Gerry?
Yeah, I think everybody and their dog wants to see elves and dwarves. I would really like to see Forces of Nature / Herd, because the design, the pencil sketch design we've seen for the satires or fawns or whatever you want to call them, are beautiful. They look like classical little deer boys running around the place. But obviously anybody who plays Herd at the moment plays GW stuff mostly, or the RGD Centaurs and Satires. Is that it?
Right.
So, but they would be a very small minority. Most people are playing with GW stuff, which are massive, chunky, and all chaos worshipping lunatics. So they're covered in skulls and stuff. They don't have that. We are the balance. We are the Forces of Nature, and will tilt to capricious or good depending on whether evil or light is waxing and waning. They just look out and out evil. So if Mantic were going to do a completely new army and a new plastic set that we haven't seen anything for yet, having those, doing something a bit Herd-esque, and then just sort of pushing that that balance, because we've got quite a few good armies now, quite a few evil, and then mercenary neutral stuff with the ogres and the halflings, but we don't have, I don't know how to put it, not mercenary, but true neutral. We're going a bit D&D there. We've got lawful neutral and chaotic neutral, but we want true neutral, beyond just revamping Trident Realm and Salamanders into the same army, going there, all my forces of nature.
What makes a man turn neutral, Kif? Always makes me think of Zach Brannigan. Bless him. Yeah, I mean, and Mark, to be honest, I would like Basileans and Undead. I know the Mantic Undead stuff is not bad, but, if they did, lovely hard plastic made in Poland Undead, I think it would be really stunning. And if they did, gave us a couple more sprues of Basileans, I think that would be really exciting. I think there's something, yes, it is exciting to have something new, but it's also exciting to have something. Just because Basilean, I just think Mantic have never really got the best out of that, and I don't think they've ever maximised its potential. And I would love that if they did that, and if they did in the story, there's this new necromancer somewhere in Basilea who's, I'm saying Basilea differently with every sentence, but you get the point. There's a new necromancer. He's causing problems, and you base the story for fourth around that. That would be really cool. I'd really like that.
That'd be a place to release those plastic sisters we want too. So
yes,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I could even imagine, new terrain or something for, monasteries or covens or whatever, and I think that would be really cool. I mean, some of it could go in the vault maybe, or we could get some MDF terrain or something like that. But I love the idea as well. I mean, we talked about it on the pod previously, but I love the idea of buying a battlefield in the box for the different factions. So you can buy a Northern Alliance box that comes with a map and some suitable terrain to put on there. There'll be maybe a frozen pond, there's a bit of terrain, a frozen hill, and you paint it up and it looks great. And there would be a Basilea one, an Abyss one, or whatever. I think that would be really, really great because, again, just getting away from the generic fantasy tables you sometimes see that very frequently make no sense. There may be a lava map with icy hills or something, and you go, okay, sure. But yes, anyway, sorry, I'm rambling on a bit, guys. Carry on.
Does anybody know when 4th edition is coming?
No.
If someone does, it's not us. But also, I'm a bit nervous in as much as I trust Mantic to do a really good job, but I just feel like people in the community are getting so kind of panicky about what this means, and we're sort of assuming things are happening that we don't know they're happening, and then we're getting overexcited about it. Let's just wait and see. And I mean, the game is in such a great spot at the moment. We're not desperate for a new edition. It's not 3rd edition War Machine. Mantic can take their time and get it right and really think about what it is they want from the new edition. But Mark, I'm with you though, buddy. I mean, if it comes to getting rid of armies and people go, well, no one ever plays Ratkin slaves, get rid of Ratkin slaves. Well, hang on a second. Mantic make hard plastics for them. Like, why not just leave them in? It's rules committee doing balancing. I know that, but yeah, I've gone on a journey with this, Mark, and now I'm on your team where I'm like, no, keep them in. But on the other hand, yeah, pushing 30 armies, if you want to introduce 2 new armies in the starter box as you do, I mean, if you're introducing sort of samurai undead, that would be a 3rd undead faction, And I wish, actually, to be honest, I wish Mantic Undead was made less generic. I think leaving in the Empire of Dust stuff was a big mistake. I think I think they did it because an old army box had both sets of models. It had mummies in or something, and they didn't want to invalidate people's armies. And I get that, but having mummies and that kind of thing in Undead when you've got a Empire of Dust faction in the army, I just think don't make the armies feel more distinctive.
Well, the mummies were in the original Undead before Empire of Dust was created.
Exactly. Yeah.
That just harkens back to the old Warhammerism, I suppose, more than anything else, when there was just generic undead. Didn't really matter what flavour of undead you wanted, be it bony, zombie, mummy, or wolfy. Your army could do everything.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And you could do everything all together. But there we go, and that's it's one of the prizes Mantic now pays. It gets stuck with these decisions that were made for just trying to lure in as many ex-GW players as possible, right? We have rules for your army. Come and join us. But be interesting. Be super, super interesting with fourth edition. Also be interested to see if the champion stuff will kind of be folded into the 4th edition rulebook, or whether it just stays I suspect it'll stay a distinct thing. But no, it's interesting. Cool. And Gerry, have you played any Kings of War this month?
No, alas not. Between running away to London for Salute and then Easter getting in the way in between, I've just been playing around trying to get some bits and pieces cleaned up and start to paint again. So working on my ogres, but no playing the side myself.
Ah, nice, good progress. But I had a lovely time. So I flew to Dublin and visited Tom and Kevin, two super, super nice guys. We met playing Clash of Kings the last few years, and they're just the best guys. So I had an incredible weekend. It was very so to keep the flights cost down, I think I left the house at something like 3:00 in the morning on Friday. And so that was interesting. But the weirdest thing was that I didn't realise this, but buses leave my village at 3:00 in the morning. And there's people going, there's people on buses, particularly going to the airport, but a lot of people work shifts and things while I'm asleep, it turns out. It's pretty busy. We had a brilliant time. I had a great game of Kings of War with Kevin, which was our revenge match. It was Trident Realm against his Abyssal Dwarves. So I've actually completely painted a new army since then, which I'm very happy to say. But we had a brilliant game of Kings of War. We played a game of Armada. We had a brilliant time. We did 2 against 1. And Basileans, we were doing great until we weren't. But we had it's amazing what a great game Armada is and how much fun it is. But we played I kind of made up. Tom had made this amazing terrain for it, so I made up this. He had all these little islands, so I made up this kind of treasure island scenario. I think we had about 7 or 8 different islands. So what you could do is you could spend a free action to try and grapple onto the island, and then if you did it, you were an anchor, and then you spend an action to basically send little rowing boats off to go and look for buried treasure. And then if you're successful and you find something, it's then it's D3 treasure basically. And it was and if your ship got sunk, as mine did, it goes to the bottom of the ocean. But if you could successfully grapple an enemy ship and subdue it, you could also keep their treasure as well. And it was we just had so it was 4 ships aside, but we had a brilliant time. It was really, really good. The game worked great, and it was all going very well for us Basileans until it wasn't, and we got completely destroyed. At some point, I got 18 hits or wounds or whatever on my ship, and that sunk me. And all that lovely treasure went to the bottom of the ocean. But my ally Tom, my admiral, he had our flagship. And he was just sort of faffing around in the corner of the map looking for treasure and not finding any. So that was not super helpful. But yes, taking 18 wounds was memorable. And so that was great. So dear listener, play Ambush. It's amazing. And then we also played a doubles game of King's War, which was pretty fun, although we were rushing a little bit. And we did a sort of custom scenario where there were 3 giants on the map. And it was pretty hilarious. It was me and Kevin. We decided to ally against Tom and another really nice guy who I'd not met before. But it was hilarious. So every turn, the giants go in a random direction, a certain amount of inches, and if they hit your unit, they're fighting you, right? It's like the Kraken or the dragon in Vanguard. The giant in Vanguard or the Kraken in Armada. And I think if I'm remembering this right, the 3 giants over the course of the game charged 7 times. Every single time they charged our opponents, they did not once charge me and Kevin. I imagine it was probably the smell, but there was so Tom and his ogres, they were allied with some humans, and so the humans, kingdoms of men, they had their own giant. So I was thinking to myself, well, maybe this giant has, been exiled and has come back or something like this. Maybe he's, yes, he was this old giant. So, yes, something weird was going on there, because the three giants immediately turned around and started attacking them. But despite suffering 7 attacks by giants that we didn't, we were quite lucky to win, to be honest. We'd kind of moved up into the scoring zone, and most of my army was killed, but it was kind of, it lived long enough and kept things back long enough to win the game. But I honestly thought we'd lost, because Tom played really well, and those ogres are really scary, like lots of shooty ogres, really, really nasty. And obviously they're still ogres, so they can still fight. So, yeah, so I think he has a scary list for Clash of Kings this year, to be quite honest with you. And of course, because it's Tom, it looks absolutely stunning. And sorry, I know I'm talking a lot, but and I hope I haven't lost connection. But I also played a fantastic, as I mentioned, I played an amazing game of Kings of War with Kevin. So we played 2,300 points. And I'm pretty sure these are our list for Clash this year. And it really was one of the most fun games of Kings of War I've ever played. And I think me and Kevin are really well matched, both in terms of competence, but also in terms of, our outlook and stuff. So we have a really, really nice time. You want to win, but on the other hand, like, you're not flipping the table if you lose or something, And it was a really interesting battle. So he had 2 of the greater obsidian golems, and he just put them on one flank, and I thought, oh, they're speed 5, that's weird. Why's he done that? But it turned out he had an outrageous amount of surge in his list, so they were sort of speedy Gonzales on turns 1 and 2. They got into combat with me on turn 2, easily actually. It turned out, by looking how much surge he had, he could have done a lot more. So that was pretty terrifying, because I hadn't really planned for that in the slightest. But I had a very, very strong centre where I had a lot of ensnare and a lot of defence 6. Doesn't do many wounds, but doesn't really generally need to. And I also had a Siren who has all the spells. So I think she's got 5 different spells, and her special rule is she can basically do all of them. It's none of the spells you would choose to take, so she doesn't have Bane Chant or any of the really obvious spells, but actually she's got things like Enthrall or Mind Fog or Hex, which can be really horrible for your opponent. So, hexing, the Abyssal Dwarf, is it called an Overmaster or something? I forget, the Hexcaster or whatever. That's horrible for them, and it's, some armies really rely on their magic. So it was super, super powerful. And the fact you can do all 5 is just brilliant. So, and one of the ones she has is Bastion, and another one is Weakness. So I was just, I beg your pardon, Bastion comes from someone else. But anyway, she has Weakness. So she was casting that every single turn, which is basically crushing strength -1, effectively. My idea for the game was hold out in the centre as long as I can, keep the 2 obsidian golems busy and occupied. And then I had all of my rocket fuel on my left flank, which was all my Worm Riders, my Knuckers, and my Trident King. And I just needed to smash on through with that and just get round the back and into the middle and hopefully win the game. And it was a close run thing, but when you're treble charging things off hills, it's nasty for these little dwarves. And so that's exactly what I did. So I charged in, took off a horde of, just your generic scumbag evil dwarves, killed those guys. And I think a big part of Kevin's strategy was he had a horde of the decimators, I think they're called the shooty ones, in the middle. And they would have been absolutely horrific particularly for my defense 6 stuff, like the placoderms, because they're putting out so many shots with piercing 1, they're going to do a lot of wounds. And once placoderms take wounds, they're in big trouble. But he realised quickly he had a big issue on his right flank, so he had to get those moving. And then by the time they kind of got into position to shoot, he only got off one turn of shooting against my Worm Riders, and I'm making it up now, but I think we probably took about 8 or 6 wounds or something like that. So it's quite a lot, but not enough to kind of worry them. And they didn't waver, and then the regen kicks in, and then we were treble charging them, ate those, and then we were in the back and just sort of feasting on disgusting dwarves. So it was an incredibly fun game. I'm sort of explaining it in a way that makes it sound like I was going to win the whole time, but it absolutely wasn't that way. It was, Kevin played really well. I think he realised turn 2 he was in a really bad position, and then just the way that he managed to reposition himself and kind of make a new plan basically was really, really impressive actually, and it was a close game in the end. So he was in a really tricky spot, and then he just managed to do really, really well to kind of claw things back. But it was a good win for the fish. I mean, I think our army can do one thing super, super well, but that's it. And maybe that works, and maybe it doesn't. And it would be great, for example, if I had some Bane Chant in the list or something. I mean, we were crying out for it, but I don't have the points, and we just need to treble charge things off hills every turn. What could possibly go wrong? So it was, it was an absolutely amazing weekend. So much laughter, so much amazing food, going into lovely Irish pubs for alcohol-free Guinness, and just had a brilliant, brilliant time. And I've been speaking for a long time, and I'm really hoping I haven't lost connection. Guys, are you still there?
Oh, yes.
Yay!
Just enjoying the story.
Absolutely. Hanging on every word.
It was amazing. But we went to visit some really, I've forgotten the name of it now, but we went to visit, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. There's 2 sites actually, which are, extremely old monuments, basically. It was absolutely amazing. And what I wasn't expecting them to say to us was they were built by people that came from, the Fertile Crescent. I thought, what? Did I mishear that? And then they went on to say, yes, so people from Mesopotamia, modern day Iraq and Syria. I thought, what? But they'd obviously sailed there and come there, and they built these burial grounds. It's absolutely amazing. And then the very nice guide lady said something along the lines of, oh, but of course, modern day Irish people, they originally came from the Ukrainian steppe. It's like, what? Yes. And I got up at 3:00 in the morning, and I was like, have I fallen asleep? Because I did have a couple of sort of micro naps throughout the day. So it's kind of like, am I imagining this? Is this right? So that was fascinating. And we were literally just down the river from the Battle of the Boyne, which is obviously a very, very historic spot. But yeah, it was absolutely amazing. Yes, and Mark, I very, very much recommend you do visit Ireland. I know you're keen on it, and yes, brilliant food, brilliant people. Maybe not brilliant weather, but it is what it is. It's part of the charm,
Well, I was hoping that we'd get a tournament there sometime that I can squeeze in. So we'll probably get a chance to bop over when we visit for Clash of Kings in September, depending on what my wife's schedule is. And then hopefully we can get a little tournament or something. And, we talked about it. Maybe we can get that, in. We can do a quick zip in and out, but it would be great.
I think Tom and Kevin had the idea that on tabletop is, about 5 hours drive away. But I think we looked it up and it's about 2 and a bit hours. So no, is that wrong? Is that wrong, Gerry?
From they're in Dublin, aren't they?
Well, just north, though. So Slane, if you know it.
Yeah, I do. It's where all the concerts happen. Big castle there.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the one.
So, it's probably 3 or so.
Right. Okay. Right.
But yeah, it's still. I mean, it's still
for a weekend. It's doable, though, isn't it?
A weekend for sure. If you're just going up for a one dayer, probably not.
Yeah, I'm with you, buddy.
That's about Cleveland to Dayton, actually, for me. So that's like leaving Cleveland and driving to Dayton for hanging out with the Ohio War Kings. So, roughly, I got an idea for the drive. It's a nice drive. You'll know that you took it, but it's not, something that you couldn't get away with for a 2-dayer.
Yeah.
There's a plan there somewhere anyway.
If anybody wants to come over in September, I've got tables. I'll open the place up and we'll play. It doesn't bother me in the slightest.
So if we went to Clash of Kings, I would be very, very tempted.
The island's not going anywhere. So
Yeah, that's
It's
true.
all very doable.
Amazing. Yes. No, I'm very much I'm going to say maybe next year, but I've got to be honest. I would absolutely love to come over again. It was so lovely, and I'd love to come up north of the border. But it's funny now when you take a flight to the Republic, and I was travelling on my German passport, and I had to sort of give information. As basically the reason was, are you planning on travelling north of the border? You know, because yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
it's
you
all
just
good
don't tell them that. Nobody cares.
yeah, exactly.
Once you're into Dublin, nobody cares.
Or I could just bring my UK passport and then it's fine.
Yeah.
Exactly. Bonkers. Yes. Yes. Once you're off the plane, no one cares. Super, guys. So, but that's all the Kings of War I've played, except for the game with my son today. And you'll be shocked to hear my 5-year-old son got a valiant victory for the Northern Alliance against my Trident Realms. What can I say? He did very well, and we had a lot of fun. So that was good. And I was hoping, to be honest, I was really keen to make it to Quest Hub on Tuesday because I haven't been in a couple of months, to be quite honest. But now it looks like our recording with Ronnie will be on Tuesday. So apologies. Frankfurt, I'm not sure I can make it. But I will mention my next event, the second event, is coming up in roughly 2 weeks. It's the 17th of next month. And we've done well for people coming from out of town. I think we have, so last time I checked, I think we have 9 people officially signed up. Only one local person has signed up. So, yes, Frankfurter Kings, please make more effort to sign up for this event that's happening in your town. Yes, it looks bad. I'm not going to lie. It looks terrible that no one locally, well, one local person has now signed up. Although that was only the last couple of days. But we have people coming. We've got Stefan and his friends from Stuttgart, who were great last time. Really, really nice guys. And I think we have 3 guys coming from Luxembourg, which will be very exciting. So, So, there's more tickets available. We've got about 8 tickets left. Dear listener, please come to Frankfurt and have a lovely time playing Ambush. And who knows? Maybe tournament number 3 could be, bigger in points, or it could be champions. Who knows? At this point, I'm totally open. But yes, please come along, dear listener. Buy your ticket on Tabletop Tourneur, the website. Cool. Super, guys. Anything else Kings of War to talk about? Oh, guys, one question I have for you, and this was kind of sparked by the idea of us actually interviewing Ronnie that hasn't happened yet. What would it take? So let's say, for example, if Vanguard did a second edition, what do you think you'd need to hear to go, okay, this is exciting? Is there anything that could draw you in?
Streamlined rules and more exciting gameplay. So, as my son once said while we were at Origins playing a demo, this is like watching the grass grow. So it's like get hit, fall down, stand up. It's just I love the concept. Came in hard. I remember all the doing all the pre-prep and everything else like for the big launch. We had Matt Gilbert on Countercharge. We were really hyping it up, and I got, all the set and got it to the table, and it just ground down. It just didn't deliver exciting gameplay. So what do you think, Gerry?
Yeah, it'd be something very similar. I wouldn't want it so streamlined it became Dead Zone. I know a lot of people want Vanguard to be Dead Zone for fantasy, but I don't. I quite like the peculiarities of actually being able to sneak up behind somebody and hamstring them or attack them from behind. I like those intricacies of skirmish play, but I do think you're right. We want less of the weebles wobble and they don't fall down. You're never able to kill people off. They just go down and get up and get down and get up and get down for a long time until they finally shuffle off this mortal coil. It's just that side of it is uninspiring. But yeah, so I think some tightening of the rules, but try and keep it the same sort of way. I do think they could probably do something akin to Dead Zone for fantasy, but have it be its own thing if they do go that way and keep Vanguard as Vanguard is. I know it's got a really diehard core fan base who like it because of the way it sort of comes together. And things like the command dice and stuff like that, I think work really well for it.
For me, I think if you tightened up these things, because someone was telling me apparently cavalry is way overpowered because speed is so important. But also, yeah, if you push down a zombie or a skeleton, it just keeps getting up. And that is just frustrating as a play experience, right? So I think if they kind of fix these things, and apparently they were also, and I have the book, dear listener, and I never tried to play it, but apparently they were, at some point, they had 3 different status tokens all in one. And I got to say, if you're putting 3 tokens in one, you probably need to think about how much clutter there's going to be on the table, because that probably sounds like there's going to be a lot of clutter all the time. But having said that, I think if it was a relatively clean game that I could enjoy playing, that's not, it can be a little bit more complicated than Dead Zone, for example, but if it had really robust and interesting campaign rules, I think, where you create your band, you craft your characters, you name them all, and one guy loses a leg, etc. It's kind of more a more modern approach to more time. I think I'd be really interested in that, to be quite honest. Also you could build some really interesting tables and all the different stuff you could do with terrain there. That would be really great. So, yeah, maybe there's definitely something there that could be interesting, I think.
Yeah, I agree on that. Absolutely. I think that would be a good way for them to go. But again, they got to do it fun, fast, and furious. I think that's going to be a big key for it. I dig the campaign system. I do all that. It's super crunchy. That's great. It's so slow. So, I mean, from that standpoint, I remember we were at Origins. We were doing the learn how to play. Only 4 people showed up. They started going over the rules, and the other people that were there are like, do we really have to play? And we didn't. And we just sat around and talked about Kings of War for 2 hours. So that's how my learn to play for Vanguard went for that. I don't think we're running that at Origins anymore. So
what absolutely killed it as well is just that the fact it's more complicated than Kings of War, when it's more complicated than the mass fantasy game. People are going to be going into it expecting. If they're players of Kings of War, they're probably expecting certain design sensibilities of clean, crisp, clear, and it doesn't sound like Vanguard, with all due respect. And some people love it, right? But it doesn't sound like it was that. So I think and as well, Mantic were pushing it as a way into Kings of War, which in no way is it a way of Kings of War, either rules-wise or models-wise or anything like that. So, Champions is a way into Kings of War, right? It just is, So, yes, so hopefully, if now Vanguard isn't pretending to be this way into Kings of War, it can just be its own thing on its own. But anyway, there we go, guys. Cool. Should we move on to our science fiction stuff? Has anyone played or done any Firefight or Dead Zone or Halo this month?
Chris, I got to run.
Oh, no worries, buddy.
So I'll fade out from here. Gerry, it was great spending some time with you.
Likewise, Mark. Hopefully I'll speak to you again soon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Cheers, guys.
Thanks, mate.
Bye.
Hey there, I'm Brian.
And I'm Rick.
From Dead Zone, the podcast.
And you're listening to Mantic Universe Podcast.
For everything Mantic under the sun.
Gerry, I think I know the answer to this. Have you done any sci-fi stuff this month?
Again, no.
Yes.
No gaming at all, really, this month. It's just been tinkering on models and that's it. Holidays are the terrible things.
Busy for work, yeah. Yes, I haven't, but what have I done? Yes, I've asked my friend Manuel to print me off some Matsudan stuff. I couldn't remember the name Matsudan earlier. So he's printing me off 6 bikes and 2 of those sci-fi dinosaurs, because, Grimlock's great. And at some point soon, I'm planning on doing a all Matsudan army for Firefight, which is awesome. I've got a load of the hard plastics, had a load of the resin stuff anyway. There was a online store in Germany a couple of years ago now that did. They cleared off a load of their Mantic stock, unfortunately, and they had the 5 resin Matsudan models. I think the original price was pretty fierce. It was sort of basically €50, but they did that at 75% off. So I picked up 5 or 6 boxes. I cleaned up. It's still actually quite a lot of money, but I wouldn't have done it at full retail price, let's put it that way. But yeah, and I've got some hard plastics recently, so at some point I'm going to do, and I've got the mechie thing as well, I'm going to do an all Matsudan army, which is cool. And I wish they'd spin it off into a sub-faction, actually, so it's its own thing. And yes, so that's going to come, but I need to do another Algorin army for my Antares, which are, they look like the Jem'Hadar, basically, from Star Trek. And because I'm going to do this kind of campaign, three game campaign, where there is an Algorin civil war, which I'm very excited about. It's going to be cool. These rebels are going to try and assassinate a general, and then it depends what happens. And constantly, while this is going on, the evil baddies, the Gar, will be constantly attacking. And I kind of had an idea for this mechanic where what the civil war, the two sides are locked in combat with each other, but actually you can decide to send your forces to go and fight against the Gar, who are the real enemy. And so there's hopefully like a risk-reward mechanic where, well, actually, if the front line crumbles against the Gar onslaught, then everybody loses, kind of thing. So, hoping there's going to be some interesting tactical decisions of, well, do I use this tank to try and crush the rebels in that building over there, or do I send it to go and beef up the front line? So, yeah, so I'm kind of thinking about these kinds of things. So I have a big red Algorin army, and I need a big green Algorin army to be the rebels. So yes, I'll be honest, I'm excited about that. I'm 3D printing a massive, and I should have turned down the amount of plastic infill, but I didn't, and I'm in this now. So I'm printing. Dark Fantastic Mills make this amazing. I mean, they always make great stuff, but they've made this really amazing sci-fi trench system. And I've been printing it for what seems like forever, and I'm probably about 20% through. So I need to print kind of, so the way that because obviously to have a trench, you need 2 levels, you need a higher level as well. So a lot of it is just printing massive slabs of plastic to lay on top of your table. And I want to do a full 6x4 table with trench systems with all this plastic printed. So I'm in this now. It's going to cost me a fortune by the time I'm finished, because if you think, like a kilogram of plastic is like, I don't know, 15 euros or between 15 and 20 euros. And, that doesn't go very far on this massive table. But yeah, it's going to be worth it when I finished it, Gerry. I've already printed off what I've done, basically, or, a big chunk of it. And I'm really happy with how it looks. So I've just got to keep on trucking this month, keep printing stuff, which my wife absolutely hates, but still. And yes, we'll get there one day, and then I'll have this lovely trench system, and obviously it'll work great for firefight as well. I'm thinking how amazing it'll be for my GCPS to be defending this against either Night Stalkers or Plague or whatever. It's going to look great. But even storing this Dark Fantastic Mills terrain is an issue. It's filled up 2 really useful boxes, and I barely got started. So, let's see what happens with that. But it's going to be amazing when it's done.
It's always the problem with terrain, because it takes up more space than the armies that are going to be playing across it. But without it, your table just looks crap. So
yeah,
you really have to lean into it.
I'm so spoiled, so I need to lean into it now. I kind of can't accept a mediocre table. And I seem to have also got the knack with painting terrain a bit more recently, so it actually looks quite good. And normally what I do is I kind of get to the point at which I'd normally say, that'll do. And then I just keep going. And what's helped a lot, actually, is just those... I think you mentioned them a couple of an episode ago or so, Gerry. There's this kind of powder you can get, Vallejo or however make this kind of powder, and that's where you can do some really interesting things with that. You can kind of make it into kind of a thick paint and chuck it on stuff, but you can as well you can use it dry, and then, as you said, kind of put a wash over that, and it makes interesting. So it's just putting more love into stuff just makes them look a lot better, to be honest. It was the same with painting my models. So I got to the point where that'll do, and they go, no, that won't do. I'm going to spend a bit more time putting more love in. And the thing I found, actually, is once I've kind of based up the colours and stuff and done the basic colours from a model. That's really the fun bit now. That's the bit where I can actually pay attention and try and make it look like the light is coming from above or whatever. And I get mixed results, but I'm slowly getting better. And it was really nice actually going to when I went to Ireland, and Tom and Kevin genuinely said really nice things about my army that they wouldn't have said a year ago because it wasn't true a year ago. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. I'm putting in the effort, and I can see the difference myself, and I'm really, for the first time ever, I'm like proud to put my models down and go, this is as good as I can do, and I'm proud of that.
I do think weathering powders or weathering pigments, whatever you want to call them, everybody should give them a go, because you can't, like you were saying, it is really easy to use. You can up a piece of terrain very quickly, make it look 10 times better just by a few very simple techniques, whether it's adding dust or whatever to using it dry, or adding some form of liquid, water, alcohol, whatever it is. But I don't think people realize just how cheaply you can do it. And I don't know whether you bought a specific tub of something, but if you just go and buy artists' pastels, it's exactly the same stuff. You get a scalpel or a bit of stick or something, and just grind the side of the pastel down, and there's your pigment powder. And a box of cheap artists' pastels is like €5, and it'll have 8 or 9 colours in it, and you'll go through it and go, well, I can use the green for moss, I can use the grey for cement dust, I can use the brown for dirt, I can use the blue or the green for verdigris, and the orange for rust. In a wee box of those, you'll get enough to do a whole slew of stuff. And then when you base your miniature, what I tend to do is get a big brush and then get something close to the colour of what the base is, whether it's a lighter brown or grey or whatever, and then just brush over the boots with the dry powder, and it looks like they've kicked up dust as they've been walking. So and it very quickly just adds an extra layer of detail. It's super simple.
And it takes seconds, and it costs almost nothing. Yeah, that's a great idea, Gerry. That's a great tip. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, and this dust stuff. Yeah, I got a Vallejo. I think it's Vallejo. I got a pack of 5 of them in a sale ages ago, like years ago, and didn't touch them and didn't really know what to do with them. And one thing as well I've been doing that I forgot about is, many years, probably 10 years ago now, I got, or nearest damn it, though GW did these 2 plastic battle boards there was one for Age of Sigmar and one for 40k, which is, 2 foot by 2 foot tiles, 6 of them. And they're quite nice details, they're hard plastic, they're good quality. And I think at the time it was something like €100 for this box, but I know prices shot up and they were difficult to get. But I've never really been happy with the way, because when I first painted it, I wanted it to look all weird and magic-y and kind of Zinch-y, and I painted it with all these crazy colours, but I was never quite happy with it. It sort of worked and sort of didn't, it kind of, I was like, don't, yeah. So, but I've kind of tried to repaint it a couple of times so that I'm actually happy with it, and I've done it just in the last couple of weeks, where I just got out some very cheap brown paint, some very cheap grey paint, and some of this poster powder stuff, and it looks a lot better now, buddy, to the point where I would actually get it out. Because the big problem I have is that a lot of the stuff I painted, even if it was 2 years ago, either models or terrain, actually, I don't like how it looks, so I need to go back and I'm kind of doing it step by step of just trying to make stuff I've already done look a bit nicer, and it's actually a fun exercise to do. I'm really enjoying doing it. It's a fun process, but when you have a basement full of crap like I do, it takes a while,
Yeah, it's always the way. It's but it's worth it at the end of the day. Whenever you get it all done, I'm waiting on a big chunk of resin terrain coming my way for fantasy, winging its way from Canada.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, there's a fellow over there, Terry. He used to be part of Rackham back when they did Confrontation and the like. He was one of their studio painters. He sculpts and casts resin fantasy scenery, and I've got quite a bit of it now. It all has a very chunky Ragnarok feel to it very, very confrontation-esque, lots of spirals and stuff, so very distinctive. But he's added to that since then. So I've got a lot of runes and bits and pieces. But then he also does it'd be very good for Lizardmen players, or you could probably use it for Salamanders or Trident Realms as well, sort of froggy inland, like a very Aztec stepped jungle set of terrain. There's a set of really icy terrain, a lava set, which I have, which is great because I have a big lava mat, and I can put down these pools of lava, big lava pillars and spikes, and like a long wall of a ridge of lava that sort of burst up. This stuff's absolutely gorgeous. And so yeah, more of that'll be coming, because I like to be able to fire down different tables of different stuff, and some of my armies are theoretically theming towards those. So my Abyssal Dwarves and Abyssals are both aimed to be on the lava board. I just need to think of another, possibly Salamanders, but certainly another neutral/good army that I can have. So I've got, opposing forces that can be lava based. And then I go, here's my lava mat and my lava terrain, and they all go there.
I mean, Salamanders, they love wallowing in volcanoes. That's their thing, isn't it? They love it. Yeah, they hate the cold. Gerry, so I've tried this many different ways, and I've spent loads of time. For example, I've just painted up finished painting up a corn army, which I may or may not pay spear point or whatever it's called at some point with my friend Caleb. I spent ages trying to paint lava, and I'm never happy with how it looks. Have you got us kind of like a simple process for making stuff look like lava?
Yeah, the key is hot and cold, and this will sound weird/odd, but you want to have the contrast between them. So if I'm doing this, there's a few paints I will use, like a nice saturated red, doesn't matter about the brands, a good densely saturated yellow, or a pale colour that I can mix into it, because you want to keep those very vivid, very bright. But then when you're doing your dark patches, and I would normally, sponge or stipple on reds and yellows and oranges to get the base lava done. But then you want to have those patches where it's starting to cool. And then for that, I use something like a cavalry brown or a chocolate brown, something that's a bit neutral. And then add black to it, but add black with a bit of a green-grey as a highlight, because you want the cool look to the cooled lava. If you just put on a black and a brown or whatever, it all looks too warm. You need the contrast between them. Now I use all Vallejo paint, so I tend to use a thing called it's a British. No, it's not British. It's a American pale green that came from their Panzer Aces range. Highlight USMC Tractor is the name of it, which is a fantastic name for anything. But it's a really light blue, grey, green, and then adding that to my black gives me the ability then to do rocks and bits and pieces, and it's just kind of a case of sponging and stippling. Sponge is your friend more than anything else. Getting little makeup sponges or bits of pluck foam that you've pulled out of a case, things like that, ripping the end off it, and then just dabbing away, because you want to try and keep it random as much as possible. But yeah, there is a really good tutorial by James Wapple, which I think might be on his YouTube channel. If it's not, there's certainly a step-by-step guide on his blog post, which is like Wapelius. But if people haven't seen his stuff, he's absolutely superb, and I've absolutely no problem saying I just ripped off his step-by-step guide years ago, and it was, all of this just made perfect sense, and watching him do it was just great. Now he's a terrific painter. He's sort of award-winning crystal brush type person, but choosing the right paints at the start will take 90% of the stress of doing it out, because you just go, well, these are my colours. Yellows go in the white or in the hottest spots, reds, and then oranges are cooler, and then the browns and stuff go over the top whenever you need to, or up onto rocks and stuff.
That sounds like a really good tip, buddy. I'm going to watch that. I found the link now. I'm going to give that a watch. That sounds really, really cool. I love the idea of the cool bits. So I'm definitely going to give that a try. Perfect.
I've stole it from my Abyssal Dwarves for my Obsidian Golems. So my Obsidian golems are all painted lavally like that. Does it make sense?
It does make sense.
This is Fred reminding you to visit the Kings of War forum, kowforum.com. No ads, no commercials. That's kowforum.com.
So, Gerry, why don't we just touch on our topic of the month, which is you went to Salute. So there's going to be some really interesting things to talk about there. Maybe not be necessarily Mantic, but I watched your on tabletop video it was really a really fantastic watch. The thing that obviously stood out to me was the sort of 1950s retro spaceships with the man
dressed up as Ming, the Rocketeer's Guide to Rocketeering. That's how much of an impact he made on me. I can still remember the name of the rule set.
He was a good salesman in a way. Although with us, it's
preaching to the choir.
Exactly. Yes.
But yeah, for people who didn't see it, it's a retro ray punk, I think is the phrase for it, space combat game. So the likes of your Flash Gordons, your Buck Rogers, the classic TV serials, that sort of thing. Loads of rockets flying around, zapping each other, trying to blow them out of the sky. And the rule set is being developed. I think they're part of, I want to say, Ilford Games Club. But
I think it was actually, yeah. I think it was.
Whatever Games Club it was, anyway, it started off as being developed by them. They are planning to release it to retail, but they've done it in such a way that you can play it on Hex if you happen to have Hex maps. Not everybody does these days. They are a dying creature as far as big, massive maps of space go. But if you don't have those, then you can just replace hexes with inches and just use sort of a simplified change set of rules that allow you to, turn up to X degrees and then move this many inches instead of hexes. So it just takes that out. You can play it either way you want, really. And it just looks divine. I really like even the work they've done on the rocket ships themselves, because it's all being done by pretty much one guy and then being play tested by his games club. And that is the epitome of stuff at Salute to me. It's seeing the stuff that people have been working on. There was a lady from another club that I never got a chance to speak to. We just never managed to get back to her whenever we had the time, unfortunately. And they were about to do the second edition, or have just launched the second edition of a superhero game, which is, a mix of RPG and tabletop skirmish, really. So you can design whatever superhero you want and then run around a board clubbing each other with cars or eye-beaming people through walls or whatever it is that superheroes do when they get bored. So I'm going to have to chase her down. I know somebody from the community was telling me I need to go and speak to her anyway. So I think they're a club mate. So I should be able to hopefully get her on tabletop at some point for a chat or an article or something, because I'm intrigued by it. The superhero, obviously Marvel's big. It's got a great game that goes great guns but costs a fortune. DC technically has a game, but nobody plays it, and the people who do play it can't get miniatures for it because Spain. So the idea of having a generic superhero game that you can turn to anything. If you want to play the boys, play the boys. If you want to play Batman against the Justice League, do the Dark God stuff, you can do that. You make up your own. If you want to be Trogdor the Burninator, then you can do that as well. So I'm very keen to see how that pans out.
That sounds really exciting. Is it, Gerry? Because I feel like a lot of the time, with the big companies, particularly GW, there's a lot of sort of negativity, and I'm responsible for a good deal of it. But does it kind of warm your heart as a gamer and as a nerd when you go to something like Salute and there's just all this indie creativity which is just done for the love? There's no expectation of making any money off of this. It's just people with their passion projects doing what they love. It must warm your heart, no?
Oh, 100%. And weirdly, since I'm not saying I'm 100% responsible, but before I joined Beasts of War, when they went to Salute, they would more or less walk around the outside and talk to the traders. So they would talk to Mantic and Warlord and Fenris or whoever it happened to be, and they'd go from trader to trader going, "Who are you? What do you sell? what have you got here today? Anything new for the show? Okay, bye.
And also, a lot of the people that might listen to this, they already know that. So it's so incredibly basic. And apologies if that sounds negative,
Yeah.
but
No.
if you're a fan of Mantic and someone just walks up to Ronnie and goes, "Hello, who are you? I'm Ronnie Renton." Well, sure, we know that.
Yeah.
That's they make a Halo game. We also know that.
Yeah. And coming as it does between massive conventions like Adepticon in the US and then UKG or whatever, yes, it gets a lot of people through the door at Salute. But the thing that I wanted to concentrate on as soon as I arrived with Base of War was the games and the smaller independent people who were about there. And that's why, anybody who sat through the 2 hours of me just going from club to club, and that was less than a third of the games that were being run by clubs and people there. And it was just great just talking to them and going, what is this? This is insane. Did anybody help you? No, you did it all yourself. That's fantastic. How long does it take you? 9 months. Are you insane, man? But just the love that people have for their projects.
That's it. It is a little bit insane. And it's just, thank goodness it is,
Yes.
It's incredible.
100%. And there's things like the Rocketeers game, the superhero game that I didn't get to see. There were 2 very small companies who both said in their program notes, because obviously the program's printed months in advance, that they would be demoing games. And whenever I went round to see them, neither of them were demoing their games because through one thing or another, they hadn't got the bodies to actually put the thing on. So they'd had to say that they were doing it and also buy the table space to put the demonstration game on, that then they weren't getting that money back. So, and it's not cheap. But one is a science fiction skirmish game, and it's done by a company called Tangent Miniatures. And Tangent are great. They've been doing miniatures / I think do STLs as well, but their miniatures are all 28mm and mostly pop culture reference. So when I found Tangent for the first time, they'd just done a set of the original Battlestar Galactica from the TV series, their pilots, and the original 1980s Hitchhiker's Guide from the BBC. So you could get Ford, Arthur, Zaphod, and the proper Marvin, the paranoid android. And their stuff was great. They've come up with this dystopia city where it's kind of like a mega city, post-apocalyptic skirmish game. So I got a copy at the show, and I want to speak to the actual writer, Wayne, and talk to him about that. And then Fenris Games, who I want to say 2 years ago, possibly not even 2 years ago, was talking about winding down completely, going, this isn't working. I can't do it as a viable business anymore. Everything's going wrong. Brexit's absolutely shafted us. I may just have to give the whole thing up. But he struggled through for a couple of months and has kept going. And Ian has a ton of really good stuff, including he imports stuff from a range in America called Bronze Age Miniatures, who do things like the John Carter aliens from the books of the same name. So he sells those in the UK, but he had come up with a fantasy skirmish game or fantasy dungeon crawler, I think. No idea what the name is for that one. But again, it was one where they weren't able to put it on at the show. But those were the ones I was more interested in than the larger companies, because people were going, oh, what have Renedra brought to the show? And you're going, well, the Spanish windmill. We know they brought the Spanish windmill. They've been talking about it for the last month. It's been all over the social media, and you can pre-order it if you're not at Salute. What are the Perrys bringing? Perrys are bringing Napoleonics. Again, we've known for 3 months. The big companies already say what they're bringing. Nobody drops a release on Salute. They might have it scheduled for Salute, but it's not a surprise to anybody. No, Ronnie doesn't show up and suddenly goes, here's 4th edition Kings of War that you didn't see coming. We know what's coming from all the companies in advance, but the smaller companies, the little independents, they're the ones who get exposure from Salute, because otherwise people don't know Fenris Games exists. They've never seen Tangent Miniatures in their life. And if they had the games there to put on, it would have been obviously a big draw for them. So yeah, it's the little ones, the independents, the clubs and companies like that, the proper cottage industry, one or two people in a room somewhere sculpting and casting their own miniatures. Those are the key for me.
So Salute's giving them a platform that they would never never have otherwise. Whereas, people like Mantic, etc., the Perrys, we know it. We know what they're about. We know what they're doing anyway. And as you said, there's no massive surprises. So that's really cool. I'm just looking at Tangent Miniatures now, Gerry. Yeah, there's Captain Blunt as opposed to Captain Sharp.
Yes.
Sergeant Larper, so obviously Harper. Paris is Harris. Yes, I very much approve of their funny, and there's some really nice horror stuff here as well. So,
speaking of Harris, he was actually at Salute, the actor.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, he had his own little stall dressed like a 95th Rifleman. He has an autobiography. I think it's called something like My Life as a Rifleman.
That's so cool.
He was there.
I often find it interesting with these actors who get massively typecast, because in a way, you can eat out, you can dine out on that for the rest of your life. But I think, some actors, I think the guy, I've forgotten his name now, the guy that played Rimmer in Red Dwarf, I think he had a hard time with it for a long time. Chris Barry, yes. If I'm remembering this right, I think for a long time he was kind of frustrated with his lot, with, being forever portrayed as these idiot characters.
Arnold Rimmer and the British Empire.
And the British Empire, exactly. But actually, if it were me, I'd be embracing it. Why not?
If it pays the bills.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
You can complain all you want for as long as you want, but sometimes you just have to go, is the grass really greener if I suddenly leave and all of a sudden discover that nobody wants me?
Well, exactly. That's it. Exactly. And you're beloved for a very specific thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's brilliant. Amazing. Yes. I for one absolutely love, Rifleman Paris and his. And I loved Sharp back in the day. That was amazing. Fantastic. And so fantastic. And Gerry, I'm sure the answer is yes. Have you ever dabbled with creating your own rule set?
They do say everybody's got a rule set in them. This is what I hear. I've never gone that far. People who know me from Beasts of War will probably be aware I have put a lot of time and effort into designing my own version of a game of Rorke's Drift, which uses a published set of rules by Dan Mersey called The Men Who Would Be Kings as its base, and then I built a scenario around it, and then I painted up all the miniatures for the British and the Zulus. And it's a sort of a blend of historic and the Zulu film, because there's a really nice set of miniatures based on the actors from the Zulu film by Empress. And so whenever I put this on, it actually plays out. The scale is right for 28mm, in that Rorke's Drift is somewhere in the region of 18 inches wide and about 3.5 feet long. And I play it on an 8x6 table with the Oscarberg Ridge and stuff, and it's played over 12 turns, 1 turn for every hour that the action happened. Things are sort of compressed or expanded to do it, but it's something that I would put on at a Salute, although I've never put it on at Salute. I've put it on at conventions in Ireland, because it takes several hours to play. But you can
do you keep it at Beasts of War? Where do you keep this massive drone?
Oh no, it's currently in a stack of really useful boxes in the next room, and then Oscarberg Ridge, which is 2 4-foot long cliff faces made out of upholstery foam that go together to block off 8 foot of the side. They're up in the roof loft along with a massive mat that I use for the ground cover. But yeah, it's been a labour of love, from painting the 200 odd Zulus to the 117 officers, non-commissioned officers, and serried ranks of the defenders, and then all of the terrain that goes with it, from tents to cookhouses to the mealie bag walls and the final redoubt and all of that. So I've never written a bespoke game, but I have written a bespoke scenario that took a game system and then made it a very specific thing. I'm not a big fan of maths, so I think it's one of those things where you have to lay in and know probabilities and statistics and things like that, or know a better way of doing it if you're not going to use dice. If you're going to replace it with cards or things like that. And I've never sat down and went, oh, I really, really want to have a game of this, and nobody makes a game of this. I've always sat down and gone, I really want to play this, and here's 2 or 3 rule sets that are close enough that with a bit of tweaking, I can play whatever happens to be.
Didn't you mention once you hadn't found a satisfactory Napoleonic rule
rules.
set? Yeah.
I have a rule set now from Warwick and Raid. Actually, I got it a little while ago. Soldiers of Napoleon. And it, I think, will do everything I want in my Napoleonic game that I've been so wishing for years. So I just need to buy a load of 10 mil Napoleonic stuff and then try it out and see whether or not it actually does the job.
I think Warlord have got you covered there. Because I've got the Black Powder rule set, whether I can't remember if it's second edition or whatever, but what is there anything, because I've just watched tutorials on that and had a quick skim through the book. Superficially, it seems fine to me. Is there anything it doesn't do, or is there anything about it that bugs you?
Yeah. So Black Powder and Hail Caesar and Pike and Shot, those 3 rule sets are essentially War Master. So War Master was GW's 10 mil game that Rick Priestley wanted to make for years and years, and GW kept putting it off, and finally they made it, and they went, no, that's not really selling. So when he left, he had the opportunity to redo it, essentially. It changed a little bit, but had the same sort of idea. You have an officer can give an order to units, and when they make a successful morale check, they will then carry out that order. So it was meant to be more sort of an umpire-driven game, or a friendly game, not really a tournament thing. So you would have your specific battle that you were fighting out, and you would go, okay, the 4th of Foot will now proceed on the right flank to advance and take the hill. When they reach the hill, they will stop and repel all comers. And then you would go, okay, roll the dice, and depending on how successful you were, you could get 1 order, 2 orders, 3 orders, or no orders at all, or you could blunder, which would do something horrendous. And then, depending on whether you got 1, 2, or 3 orders, you would then measure, okay, well, this is going to be a movement action, and their move is 6 inches, it's 20 inches to the hill, so if you were successful and got 3 orders out, you would go move, 18 inches just shy of the hill, but they're in a good location. So a unit will try and do whatever the order is. I never liked it for a couple of things. One was the footprint, the unit footprint. I'd have to change it, and the movement as well is very extreme. I think in second edition they've reduced it somewhat, but it was originally War Master tweaked for them to play their own games with, and they would play them at things like the Perry's house, where they have a 20-foot long table, and not many people have a 20 or 24-foot long table that's 8 foot wide or 6 foot wide, whatever it is. So all of the ranges are massive.
Us proles like to play war games too, They hadn't thought of that, yeah.
No, well, cavalry could potentially lap the board with a sufficiently good roll on that. They could easily cross a 6x4 that most people play on, or go, from front to back or left to right. So there was always the sort of scaling issue, and there were a few other little bits and pieces here and there that just sort of didn't do it for me. They're sold enough rule sets, and plenty of people have tweaked them often enough that you could do it. And in fact, I have all of them from first edition behind me, including things like they released a Rockstrift book. They released specifically a British Zulu Wars book, which I got when I was trying to find a rule set for Rockstrift, and everybody's go, oh, well, you can get Black Powder, and then you can just get that expansion specifically for Esandwana and Rockstrift, and it's all there for you. And I looked at it and went, this doesn't do anything that I want in the game. It's entirely wrong for what I need. Probably good for Esandwana, to be fair, the main sort of conflict, and then the subsequent actual military engagements inside Zululand. But as far as 120 men fighting off 4,000 Zulu MP, didn't do the job. So, yeah.
When it comes to your scenario, how much does singing come into it?
Quite a bit. I give points for style. I will put up on the MUP Facebook/Discord pictures of the unit cards. Every unit is led by a officer, and each of them is a character from the film. And so a unit card, so I can hand these to people. They're all laminated. I just hand them to them and go, this is your unit, that's your commander. You've got Colour Sergeant Bourne. He has these stats, and then all of them have like a special rule they can use, like Why us? Because we're here, lad. Us and no one else. Reroll a morale check, that sort of thing. And then Chard has Sing, Damn You, Sing, which automatically rallies all British within 12 inches of him. So because it's a game where you get pin tokens and stuff. So yeah, Chard is out there going, Sing, damn you, sing. And other notables are going, fire at the smoke. So negates one of the modifiers for firing at the Zulus, sort of up in the high ground or on the Oscarburg Ridge. So yes, those are the sort of the non-historical little bits of fluff that I added in just from the film because it's all good, clean family fun.
Amazing. I don't know how many times I saw that film as a kid, but it was a lot of times. Yeah, amazing.
It will never go old.
Does Private Hook feature at all?
Hook is in charge of the walking wounded in the hospital at the start. Hook special rule is that's enough, Hook, my lad, out you get. So he doesn't have to make rules for movement for his unit. He can just go, let's go. Because when you activate a unit, you have to roll to see whether or not they will do what they need to do. But Hooky and his walking wounded can just go wherever they need to go. They can never go quickly, but they can go if they need to. So
that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Beating Zulus with a walking stick or whatever it was. Yeah, amazing.
Yes.
Cool. And Gerry, just while I'm thinking about it, as I'm getting older, I think that's probably a big part of it. I'm getting much more I'm much happier with dead war games where they're no longer supported.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about dead games?
Well, I've already mentioned Confrontation, which is a game that's been dead for so long. It's about to come back again, so somebody got the license and are going to resurrect that. And there's a few others that have been resurrected. But even outside of that, I like war games that have died. And this is going to seem really weird. They can't be messed with anymore. If you have a game you really enjoy, you don't have to worry about suddenly that game changing in a new edition and then losing half of the player base or whatever. Once the game has ceased to be produced, it becomes sort of fixed at a point in time that you can always return to, and it will always be
like
exactly.
A stop clock. Yeah.
Yes.
The apocalypse has happened. Yes.
Exactly. Now, there are communities that keep games alive. Warmaster, when Warmaster went away, it was quite a fun game as far as the Fantasy 10mm version goes. And there is, and I think there still continues to be, an online version that was actually curated at one stage by, I think, Jervis Johnson and Rick Priestley. So it was officially unofficial, but they kept the rules, the lists, and everything else up there. And it was all sort of fan-maintained in a similar way to Blood Bowl. Now, if a company suddenly decides that they can actually make money out of this after all, maybe they'll get resurrected, maybe they won't. But I sometimes see people, and this happens with edition changes as well. All of a sudden something happens, a game dies or a edition comes along that they don't like, and then they immediately go, well, I'm not playing it anymore. They go, but you own all of the stuff, so you could still keep playing it. Yeah, but it's a new edition. I don't like the new edition. But just play the old edition. Or they're not making miniatures for it anymore, but your army's complete. Yeah, just play that. Just why?
I also find this absolutely baffling. Surely you're more invested in this by now that you're not just chucking everything out the moment. Yeah, exactly. There's not going to be any more models you can buy for it. Because me now, it's kind of, I find it kind of weirdly reassuring. Like the pressure's off. Like that I have no further requirement to spend any more money on this, because it was the same with The Walking Dead for Mantic, or it's the same with Antares, where I can still pick stuff up if I want to, but everything is done on my timeline. Everything is down to me, right? So there's no longer release schedules where that where I get these emails saying don't miss out, there's these new buy this stuff, and I just feel like we have the full, if it's a dead war game, we have full control over that, and we can do, as you say, it's like a stop clock, or it's a moment in time we can just enjoy for what it was. with no pressure. It's just, I'm increasingly really, really enjoying it. And I'm sort of, if I see on eBay for a decent price a sort of Dead War game, it's quite a fun little hobby project just to do it. And it's a little moment in time where someone was super, super optimistic. I mean, I got some Godslayer stuff recently, cheap on eBay, and I think, I think that's no longer supported, and you can see all the love someone's put into that, and how much lore there is, and like someone's just put their heart and soul into this, right? And it's I find it fascinating. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, even at Salute, one of the tables was a 7th edition Lizardmen against. I want to say Lizardmen against Dark Elves, but he was just running a participation game of not even the old world, specifically 7th edition, so not even the last edition of Warhammer, because that was it. He just went, no, I'm going to run 7th edition Warhammer. If people want to come and play, they can. Here I am with my 2 armies. It's lovely. This is lovely. Isn't it nice to be playing this game that is at this stage 12 years old, 15 years, whatever it was,
Yeah. Yes. Gerry, anything else you want to touch on before you finish for tonight?
Hopefully, we're getting into summer now, and I'll have a bit more time to actually get some games in and do some stuff, especially once I get my ogres and stuff brushed down and painted up again.
But it's always a good chat, and I think it's a slippery slope. If you start sort of saying, well, I haven't really done anything, let's not record, then the kind of the bar for what counts as doing stuff kind of lowers.
Yes.
To be honest, I always enjoy. I think we've set a precedent now that, yes, of course, we're a Mantic podcast, but we also have the scope to talk about things we're interested in. I mean, it's our podcast, Gerry, right? So we're doing it. So I think it's totally fair. We go off topic and talk about other games, and I'm sure that most of the listeners will be at least partially interested in us, talking about Dead War games or Salute or, some random spaceship game that I've forgotten the name of already, but the
Rocketeer's Guide to Rocket Ships.
Yes, perfect. Brilliant. Right, well, Gerry, we'll catch up very soon, hopefully, because we've got Ronaldo the Bard coming on, as you said. But yes, thanks for the lovely, lovely chat about models, which I very much enjoy.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
And thank you, dear listener.
All right then, folks, that's us for another month. We'll see you again soon for the Mantic Universe podcast. And remember, so much universe, so little time.